My wife cheated on me with my brother while I was grieving our dad's death. She got pregnant and claimed he manipulated her into the affair. I'm using a throwaway account since some friends and family use Reddit. I, 32M, need to get this weight off my chest and maybe get some advice on how to handle this mess. I'm Robert, 32, working as a senior software engineer at a tech company in Boston. I've always been the quiet, responsible type, focused on my career and family. Family has been everything to me, especially my relationship with my dad, who recently passed away. I grew up in a close-knit family in suburban Massachusetts. My older brother Nate, 37M, and I were raised by loving parents who always emphasized family values. Despite our 5-year age gap, Nate and I were pretty close growing up. He was the outgoing, charismatic one who went into business and real estate, while I was more introverted and got into technology. We had different personalities but complemented each other well. Nate was my best man at my wedding, and I always looked up to him as my big brother. I met Carol, 30F, at a friend's New Year's party. She had this infectious energy about her. I'm usually reserved at social gatherings, but she got me talking about my work in AI, and before I knew it, we'd spent hours just chatting. She brought out a side of me I didn't know existed. We started dating, and everything just clicked. She understood my passion for technology, and I admired her creativity and social skills. After 2 years of dating, we got married in a small ceremony. Everyone in my family adored Carol, especially my dad. He always said she was the daughter he never had. Carol fit right into our family dynamics. She and my brother's wife, Olivia, 35F, became close friends despite their different personalities. Olivia is a pediatric nurse, more serious and career-focused, while Carol was all about socializing and having fun. They would go shopping together, have weekend brunches, and plan family gatherings. We all lived within 30 minutes of each other and had weekly family dinners at my parents' house. Life was great until last year when Dad started having persistent coughs and chest pain. The diagnosis hit us like a truck, stage 4 lung cancer. Dad had never smoked a day in his life, which made it even harder to accept. I took it particularly hard because Dad and I had this special bond. Every Sunday morning, we'd go fishing together, just the two of us. He'd tell me stories about his youth, give me life advice, or sometimes we'd just sit in comfortable silence. Even after I moved out and got married, I called him every day on my drive home from work. Watching him deteriorate was the hardest thing I've ever experienced. Within months, he went from this strong, active man who could spend hours in his workshop to someone who needed help walking to the bathroom. I spent every free moment at the hospital with him. Carol would come with me sometimes, but I could tell the hospital environment made her uncomfortable. She'd usually leave after an hour or so, saying she had work to catch up on. Dad passed away 3 months ago. The last few weeks were brutal. He was in so much pain despite the morphine. The night he died, I was at home trying to get some sleep after spending 48 hours at the hospital. I still feel guilty about not being there when he took his last breath. Mom says he waited until everyone left because he didn't want us to see him go. After Dad's death, I fell apart. I couldn't sleep, could barely eat. I'd go to work because I had to, but I was just going through the motions. I'd spend hours after work just sitting in our backyard, looking at the fishing rod Dad gave me for my 30th birthday. Carol tried to get me to talk about my feelings, but I couldn't. How do you put into words the feeling of losing someone who was your father, mentor, and best friend all rolled into one? That's when Nate suggested Carol and I move in with him and Olivia for a while. Their house was closer to my workplace, and he said being around family would help me heal. Carol agreed immediately, saying the change of environment would do me good. Looking back, I should have noticed how quickly she jumped at the idea, but I was too lost in my grief to see anything clearly. We moved into their guest bedroom, and initially, everything seemed normal. I was still deeply depressed, spent most evenings in their backyard just staring at nothing. Carol would try to engage me in conversation, but I just couldn't respond the way she wanted. I knew I was being distant, but I couldn't help it. Everything reminded me of Dad. About a month into our stay, I started noticing changes in Carol's behavior. She began spending a lot of time with Nate, saying she was helping him organize paperwork for his real estate business. Olivia worked long hours at the hospital, often doing night shifts, so it wasn't unusual to find Carol and Nate working in his home office. I didn't think anything of it at the time. I trusted them both completely. Last week, everything came crashing down. Carol told me she was pregnant. She was smiling, expecting me to be happy, but all I felt was confusion and then a growing sense of dread. You see, I'm infertile. We discovered this 2 years ago when we were trying for a baby. Multiple tests confirmed it. Carol knew this. We'd gone through all the fertility counseling together, discussed adoption, even started looking into IVF options. When I reminded her of this fact, her smile disappeared. She started crying, saying she was sorry, that it just happened, that she was lonely because I was so distant. I felt like I was in some kind of nightmare. But it got worse. When I asked who the father was, she broke down completely and admitted it was Nate. My own brother. The person who suggested we move in with them. The same brother who held me at Dad's funeral and promised to always look out for me. The same brother who sat across from me at dinner every night while sleeping with my wife behind my back. When I confronted Nate, he tried to deny it at first, but Carol had already confessed everything. Their affair started just 2 weeks after we moved in. They would wait until Olivia was at work and I was lost in my grief in the backyard. Sometimes, they met during the day when I was at work. In my father's house. Where we grew up. Where we shared so many memories. Now Carol is trying to play victim, says Nate manipulated her, took advantage of her emotional state, claims he pursued her, convinced her that I didn't care about her anymore. Nate is denying this version, says she came onto him, that she initiated everything. I honestly don't care who made the first move. They both betrayed me in the worst possible way. I packed a bag and moved out immediately. Went to stay with my friend Jake. Filed for divorce the next day. Carol keeps calling, texting, showing up at my workplace, begging for forgiveness. Says she'll terminate the pregnancy if that's what I want, as if that would somehow fix everything. I blocked her number and told security at work not to let her in. Olivia found out yesterday. She came to see me, crying, asking if I knew how long it had been going on. She's completely devastated. Packed her bags and left for her parents' house in Seattle. Nate's been calling everyone in the family, trying to do damage control, says it was a mistake, that he was grieving too.